Is it a deny? For today's video, I wanted to share the list that I had the most fun playing last night. Last night, I tried out a bunch of different decks, and on stream, I built a Viktor and Aphelios list because of a number of reasons that I'm going to talk about in just a moment, and I wanted to share that with you today. So if you are somebody who just cares about gameplay, as always, you can use time tags, jump ahead there. If you want today's list, deck code will be in the video description, link to Mobalytics will be in the video description, and this is that part where I remind you to consider subscribing if you're new. But we're going to start by going through the deck, and I'm going to talk through my choices and inclusions and explain why I wanted to play Aphelios with Viktor. So right out of the gate, Aphelios and Viktor have this natural synergy together because Aphelios loves to create cards and Viktor loves it when you play created cards. Now, on top of that, some of the stuff that supports Aphelios, for example, Lunari Duskbringer, they create created cards, and those are, again, great with Viktor. And so Viktor, he levels up when you've played created cards, and then he gives you a sweet cost reduction. Aphelios levels up when you play moon weapons, which are created cards, and then he at least gives you a cost reduction on them while also generating them. So if you get to the point where they're both in play, it is almost like Aphelios was never nerfed because your moon weapons are coming every turn, but also they're going to cost 1 at that point. But with the new hotness that we got in this expansion, we can now also add in Glorious Evolution to the mix. This card is going to give us a cost reduction on everything, and it's also going to give all of our cards augment, so they're going to continue to get bigger and do that scaling thing. And the scaling matters because one of the ways you win with an Aphelios deck, I know it's been a while since we've played the Moon Boy, but you usually get 1 or 2 really big units, and then you slap on the Overwhelm weapon to allow you to push for victory, go over the top. So with all of that kind of in mind, we're going to go through. Currently, I'm running 1 of Beam. Like many of the lists that I like to play, I'm going to tell you up front, A, this is not refined, so you can move some of the numbers around if you want, and B, this is a deck that wants to include a bunch of cards and it can't fit them all in, so some of these numbers are a bit off. So 1 Beam, I'd love it to be 2 somehow, but it's hard to find room. Also, Beam is great, but it's a little awkward in this list because it uses up all of your mana, and this is definitely a list where you are trying to play like 2 or 3 cards a turn, and so that can be awkward at times. Duskbringer. So with the nerf to the moon weapons and them now costing 3, you no longer get those explosive crescendum starts. In the past, it used to be Duskbringer on 1, you pass on 2, and then you pedal into Aphelios on 3 and usually play like a crescendum as well to make up for you skipping that round 2. You can't do that now, but Duskbringer is still important because it still allows you to play Aphelios with the Nightfall on 3, and you can still develop on 2. You just don't get that crescendum portion, right? So the count on your moon weapons isn't there, but you can still develop 1, 2, 3 if you play Duskbringer. You also get those created cards, and so when you're playing the pedal, that's relevant for helping you to level up Viktor. Now, the pedals are also nice because if you're not using them for Aphelios, you can pitch them to some other cards, like Spacey Sketcher. This is currently a 1 of. I wish I could run more because you've got plenty of cards to pitch to her. But again, this is a deck that wants to run a bunch of everything. So right now, 1 of Spacey Sketcher just as a bit of a toolbox and getting rid of pedals and potentially getting rid of ignition. So you're running Viktor. You want to be running Ballistic Bot. It scales just like Viktor does. It creates cards, which Viktor wants, and so on and so forth. So ignition is great. Spoiler alert, this deck also runs Temple, and so things like pedal, things like ignition, they're also great for giving you that temple value. This is one of the spots where you can consider playing with the numbers if you don't like mine. I am very big on iterative improvement because it's very flexible and it makes a created card, which all of your units care about, but the ability to copy some of your late game bombs that you invoke, I think, is huge. The ability to copy some early game units, whether it's your opponents just to give you extra blockers, or creating an extra bot to get you up to, you know, multiple ignitions, whatever the case may be. I just really love the flexibility of this card. This is a personal playstyle preference, and I recognize that, but you should be running some number of these, but I understand if you don't want to run 3. Mountain Goat. Another quick thing about iterative, I like burst speed things as well, because sometimes you get to the point where your Victor might be at like 5 or 6, and if you need ways to create cards quickly and then play them so that you level your Victor, I think that's relevant as well. Now, iterative is not a created card, but it's burst speed, and it can give you a created card, so it's like pseudo burst speed. But that's another reason that I like it. Mountain Goat, speaking of things that create cards, we're running this just to help us with the early game. Mountain Goat blocks fearsome units. It makes a gem, and the gem is a created card. It helps us trigger Temple, helps us heal some of our units up after value blocking. Ballistic Bot is kind of notorious for that. Using a gem on a Ballistic Bot gives it +2. Same thing goes with your Victor because of Augment as well. So great value there. It's also backup. So if you are playing Crescendum, to find a 2-drop, having at least 2 2-drops means that you're not likely to run out of targets unless the game goes really long. Mystic Shot. We're playing Piltover and Zon, so we're running Mystic Shot. Pale Cascade. This is mostly for the card draw. It's a combat trick, and it can keep some of your key units alive. The +1/+1 does end up being pretty relevant at times, so save your Aphelios, save your Victor, that sort of thing. Rummage. I know it's been nerfed, but Rummage was the best card draw spell in the game for a very long time. This is actually a card that I wish I could run more than one copy of, because in this list we create cards a lot. It's very easy to find things to discard, and you still draw 2 cards. Like, Rummage is still powerful. Do not let the nerf kill this card for you. Rummage is still good, gang. We have been playing Glimpse. Let's turn on this. We've been playing this card forever, and this is a 2-cost draw 2 that has a drawback that's very easy to mitigate. Well, Rummage is now the same thing, but still at burst speed. It's still a 2-cost draw 2 with a drawback that's easy to mitigate. So what I'm saying is don't assume that because a card was nerfed that it's now bad. Rummage is still really good in a lot of lists. Now, it's only a one of because, again, I'm having a really hard time fitting all the cards into this that I want to fit into it, but I really wish I could run at least one more copy. Aphelios, one of the champions that we're running. Get excited. This is one of as like clutch removal or a finisher. We create a lot of cards, so the discard not really relevant, and much like many of the other cards I'm running as a one of, we wish we could run more, but we only have so many slots in the deck. Hush. I think that this is still worth the 2 of because it hits a lot of units right now, and it's burst speed, and it does a lot for you. If you wanted to cut this to a 1 to maybe go up and get excited or go up something else, I would understand, but I like it still as a 2 of. Priestess. This one is also a bit controversial because we're not running a huge heavy invoke package, but the big reason I like Priestess is that it gives you access to a lot of things that you really like in this deck. Whether it's written in the stars to go find an Aphelios or a Victor, but also in finding them, you buff them, and the buff keeps them outside of most removals range is a pretty big deal. Or finding you something like a Meteor or a Comet where it's going to improve the removal package because we're playing Targon, and yes, we're playing Piltover and Zon, but right now it's basically Mystic Shots and like the one Get Excited. So we don't have a ton of removal. We're relying a lot on, in my opinion, Priestess to invoke and find them, or on Calibrum. I know that in the past, Aphelios was king of Crescendum. In this list, Calibrum and Gravitum are actually your best friends. So we are running 3 copies of Priestess, but I could understand if people are not as big of a fan. I run a 1 of Bastion for the same reason I run a 1 of Pale Cascade. Sometimes it just bails you out, and making your opponents have to play around even just a 1 of is sometimes nice. Veiled Temple. So this could be a controversial choice, but it's actually still been working pretty well for me. I absolutely wish it still buffed health. In fact, I would be even happier if it buffed health over attack, because many of the units we're playing already scale their attack with Augment. So if I could, get Temple reworked, I would have it go +0, +1, but I know why they nerfed it that way, because they don't want your backline units to stay alive forever, but that's exactly what I want it to do. But that being said, the real trick here is the mana manipulation. If you can find a opening in the window of opportunities and whatever, if you can find it and you can play Temple, it's still as good as it ever was. And it's maybe, I would argue, even more necessary because with the nerfed moon weapons, you need all the mana you can get to keep pumping them out. It honestly has not slowed me down that much. You just have to be very careful about when you decide to develop it. You cannot just jam it on 4 like the days of old. You have to actually assess, is this the right time? But once you do get one down, it does all of the work that it used to do for you. Viktor is great. Temple's also, just for the record, great once you get any of your cost reductions going. So that's another reason to consider it, because if you've got Viktor up and running, or Aphelios leveled, or Glorious Evolution being played, the mana you get from Temple really starts to matter. If you've popped Glorious Evolution and now you're also getting an extra 2 or 4 mana a turn, then you can just play whatever you want whenever you want. It's kind of absurd. But Viktor, Star Shaping, yes, it was nerfed, still good. Still is an exact mana answer for Decimate, but you also get a card, so you still run Star Shaping and then Glorious Evolution on the top end. Evolution is just like Veiled Temple. For the most part, you think of it as something that is a mana investment for the long term. So if there's a opening in terms of the gameplay and the tempo of the game where you can safely play it, then you take it and then you just reap the long-term benefits, but you have to know when the right time to do that is, and you can't just jam it as soon as it's available. So Evolution and Temple are where you kind of surge ahead in value, but you have to stall or get yourself into a comfortable enough position to where those are okay plays to make. But with that being said, this is the deck. We're gonna go play a game. I know I normally play 2, but we're gonna play a single game today because I have a lot going on and I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to record, but hopefully you enjoy the deck, and let's dive into that game. Well, it looks like we're gonna be up against the new Ruben Zoo list. Recently hit rank 1. I think we'll keep this. Hit rank 1 on the ladder. This is a proactive list. It's rather aggressive. We could actually struggle against this just because of the number of units that have Spell Shield. Sivir and Ruin Runner are both potentially problematic for us, so we'll have to wait and see how this goes. We also don't have the same explosive start that Aphelios decks used to have because we cannot bank our 2 mana on round 2 and go into Aphelios plus Crescendum.
Quick hands make quick work. Lunari, rise.
I was gonna say, I think we want to go for this trade, but I suspect that if they pass, they might have a young witch here, which would allow this to gain quick attack, or a reaper that they're just waiting to get some credit on. But since we can't bank and immediately play the moon weapon, I think you still go with Ballistic Bot here, and then you can still use Petal into Aphelios. Fearsome is not something that we can block there. And here again, they didn't block with this the last time, so we could do this again, knowing full well they likely block this time, but this will buff the Reaper. I think that's what they were waiting on for that trade.
Got a lizard and a shovel.
A duty fulfilled, a life undone. Do not fear the shrouded path.
So there's a Zed that unfortunately we don't have the ability to punish. Now with 1 mana up, they could also just have the Shaped Stone, and maybe that's why they felt comfortable doing that, but it's a real shame that we do not have the ability to punish this the way we would like. And now we've got to make a tough decision here. This is going to be a lot of damage coming our way if they take the open attack. So we're going to take the Gravitum and pray that they're greedy, because if that is the case, then we can stun the Zed. But I suspect an open attack is coming, because that puts a lot of pressure on us. But They did not. So we're just going to go ahead and just not deal with the Z part. So we cannot block the duo at the moment, but this sets us up with slightly okay responses. Young Witch is not a great development for us because that means we can't block with our ballistic bot the way we were hoping to on the Reaper.
They'll never see us coming.
So that means we're, I think, just taking all of this, which is really unfortunate.
System upgrade.
The Hush is potentially nice. I think here we want to go with a goat and then probably crescendum because we're trying to phase, I think, to Severum so that we can get some health back.
Sun's beneath me and winds behind me.
I'm ready.
But again, we're really concerned about the open attack here. We couldn't get Severum and play it this round, unfortunately. And it's not looking like we're going to get an opportunity to develop this temple safely. They just keep jamming a scarier and a scarier board. But this goat means we at least have a blocker for the fearsome. This goat in hand, however, means we're more likely to get a bot with this than we are anything else, which is not great. They're taking an awful long time here, which tells me they have a deny. The Ruben list usually, I think, runs 2. Yep. And they were just deciding if that's what they wanted to use it on or not. And that is, again, not great for us. This is essentially a free attack, because we're okay with any of these blocking it just to get it out of the way.
Move!
Your time cycle is done.
And so now we just have to survive this open attack and we might have some hope.
I know what I'm worth.
Oh, they're gonna go with the Sivir, huh? I think we have to go with the Severum here and then save the other 3 mana for a Hush. That's the most likely way that we make any sort of attempt here. Again, Sivir, incredibly problematic for us because of the spell shield. So we could not Hush her if we wanted to.
Full speed ahead.
Do not deny me.
Danger pays.
Come on, Rib.
Good ordering by them.
We go as one.
Really good ordering by them. So they have 2 mana up. One of these 2 cards is likely a Twin Disciplines because that would be devastating for us. So the other question we have to ask ourselves now is, with this Hush, where do we want to go with it? This makes sense just because we can still get a good block there as well. We just have to decide whether or not we want to give this goat up for 3 more health, because we could also put an Aphelios in front of that. If we really wanted to.
Find peace in the quiet, Fel. It's just us.
But I think we're gonna just take the risk like this. So we catch a bit of a break that they don't have the twin.
Land, sand, and treasure. Couldn't ask for more.
Because that would have been devastating. So they go with another Reaper. And we're just trying to find, I was gonna say like any sort of removal or, you know, access to healing, something along those lines. Because we also have to deal with these elusive units as well. And so we can gravitum one of them, spend some mana, and then try to beam something. We could like try to beam this for 1 potentially, 1 or 2. But we just really, we don't have enough mana to properly push things out the way that we would like. If they play a Ruin Runner, we're also just straight up dead. Let's not kid ourselves on that front. We actually might have to iterative this Reaper, because we could play that for 1 and then try to poke this for 1, but it's also largely dependent on what else they develop here. Because they still have the sands that they can threaten us with as an extra attacker next round, plus whatever these 2 cards are. And so all in all, things are not looking the greatest for us. And so we're gonna grab ourselves another body. All right, so there's the witch. So with 1 card left in hand, we have to really hope it's not any sort of buff. Unfortunately, another young witch is bad for our prospects as far as trades go. We're out of mana, so we can't catch them with any surprises. So what's interesting here is that if they didn't have a buff to save that unit, they probably don't have a buff to pump any of these. And so if I attack with this bot, the only thing that kills it is Sivir. And we're fine with that trade. So I think you just take the damage there. Rummage could actually be very helpful potentially. All right. Star shaping plus a 1 drop gives us quite a bit more flexibility, so I think we say okay. because priority comes back to us.
They forced us
We're going to lose
death or the
a bunch of units here to chump blocking, but being able to heal with the star shaping is a pretty big deal for us. Aphelios is close to leveling, but we're not going to get to this crescendum until at least next round. And there's a strong chance we might have to sacrifice our poor moon boy just to survive. Because everything's gonna have quick attack, and we also cannot block here. So with that in mind,
You cannot hold us down.
something like this at least is the proper blocking. 2 cards in hand though, so again, they didn't have it before, but they could have drawn a twin discipline. So if they have that here, that threatens lethal. But then we again have our star shaping. So I think this is what we have to go with,
It's just us.
as we just try to stabilize slowly but surely. They are doing a great job of bleeding our board out. We need to get their board to a position where it's at least close to smaller, so that we can actually waste a spell on Sivir to then focus on dealing with her. But we just haven't had, I think, a good opportunity to do that yet. Oh, interesting. Great Beyond or Immortal Fire both allow us to start blocking some of these elusive units, but that's like your entire turn. Immortal Fire in particular is kind of tempting just because it means like blocking Sivir once and killing it. I would take this because of giving everything Overwhelm, but we're still too far away from that. And so this is a bit of a tough call. I think we almost have to go with the cheapest option just because it's going to give us the most to work with from a mana standpoint. Because we can't attack with it. Even if we had taken Great Beyond, like, we're not at the point where we can threaten lethal. And so I guess I shouldn't say we can't attack with it. Like, we will, but we can't kill them with it. So if we take like Great Beyond, thinking, okay, we play it next round and we try to counterattack, obviously they're sitting on elusive blockers, so we have to keep that in mind with how we navigate this round. Another star shaping is kind of nice. I also have to start thinking about Temple, as weird as that sounds. Because if we're not playing the Immortal Fire, what we want to do is we play Temple, we go down to 5. Crescendum takes us down to 2, but we level Aphelios and we get up to Severum. And then at that point, at 2 mana, we can play like a gem. We go down to 1, back up to 3, which still leaves us with the ability to play the goat as another potential blocker. And so we take this.
A crescent path opens before. Our path is fixed. Now we must walk it.
And so now we're in this interesting position where we definitely gem Our Aphelios has quick attack here though, so we could get a decent amount of life back here if we, instead of playing, so if we do this, we can play a goat to be a blocker plus an ignition, but we also have this Severum, which on our Aphelios becomes pretty relevant because of the health that we would gain. And we'll take a Gravitum because if they play the Sands next turn, that opens us up to Gravitum something. So they play the Sands now.
With the Knight's Embrace.
But we just care about gaining the health. So they're not losing units on their board, but again, we just care about the health there. And they play another blocker. So they are fully set up for the open attack. So the Gravitum won't matter at this point. Oh, the Get Excited won't matter either because everything's going to have Spell Shield.
Come on, Rib.
So we just have to survive this as best we can, including this star shaping. We'd love to be able to block these young witches, but we can't. Now we could maybe block this with Aphelios.
Mother.
So something like this has us at 8. We lose everything but Aphelios. But it allows us to potentially play this Immortal Fire and start our counter pressure proper. So we have to lose our units, but I think this is correct. So this takes us down to 2, but we're still alive. We do lose our Aphelios, which is unfortunate. I do not foresee a way around that though, even if we don't play the star shaping, right? Like we could try to Bastion here, but that's not enough. Again, because of everything having Spell Shield and we don't have another targeting option that's fast speed, we can't even ping this off and then get excited. So I think we are stuck just letting this resolve
Find peace in the
and
quiet.
going down to 2.
It's just us.
Then we go ahead and we goat up. So this is interesting because I think I'm actually supposed to play this ignition to get them down to 10 on the off chance they don't block with one of their young witches. Our Immortal Fire plus the Get Excited then threatens lethal. I know they run 2 denies in that list, but we've already seen 1. So I think we go with the ignition as well, because then that means that this trades with at least one of the young witches. Iterative here is kind of interesting because we could use iterative on our Immortal Fire. I think that's got to be the play. Because now they have to block with both of them, or we can get there with Get Excited. The other option is we also then could Gravitum one of them to push the at least 7. That's actually even better, because this... Sure, I guess we'll take the Crescendum. I don't think that matters as much right now, but we attempt this, because this makes Get Excited a potential win con next round. So we for sure get rid of one of these young witches, but getting them down to 3 with our Get Excited is very relevante, because they're going to take an open attack assuredly, and they're going to have 2 cards. And again, 90% sure this is a list that runs 2 copies of Deny if it's Ruben's list, so we're just gonna have to hope
That's my resting face.
that that's the last card in hand is not that. Let's do this just to throw the illusion. We have 11, so we can do this and still have enough for both Get Excited and Star Shaping.
Sunlight guide you, my brethren.
Gonna catch the sky.
And so this game, it looks like, is going to come down to whether or not this, because with Fearsome we can't block enough, so Star Shaping doesn't save us either way. Is it a deny? Or did we stall out against the new Ruben list long enough? Despite all of the Sivir shenanigans. Yeah, we get there. What a game. What a game.